folks, welcome back to Brew. I just finished installing this Motionsense faucet by Moen. This is the Hayfield in a brushed nickel, and so far, pretty cool little faucet. It only took me about 45 minutes to an hour to install, and the installation was really pretty straightforward. Moen provides great instructions, step by step, all of the couplings, the supply lines, the control module, everything is numbered. You'll see that in a minute as I go through the step-by-step instructions myself on how to install this. But first, let me just give you a quick tour. The Motionsense, pretty nice. If your hands are slimy from cutting up chicken or beef or something and you don't want to touch the faucet itself, you just put your hands under. It turns on, turns off when you're done washing. Now, maybe if you have some heavy pots and pans or something and you don't want to reach for the faucet handle, you can wave your hand over the top, turns on the water, and that water will stay on until you wave your hand back over the top, turns it off. Now, of course, if you want to use the faucet the old-fashioned way, you can use the handle on the faucet and select hot and cold, what have you. Now, underneath on the control module, you can set the temperature for when it comes on in automatic mode. So let's go ahead and walk through the installation. Pretty excited about installing this. Read through the instructions already. It looks pretty straightforward, believe it or not. Let's go ahead and give it a shot. So the first thing we need to do is thread the data cable and the water supply lines through this gasket that goes on the bottom of the faucet where it meets the countertop. And the handle is supposed to go on the right. We're going to feed all this through. Now we're installing this as part of our kitchen remodel. We just had these countertops installed the other day. Just one hole drilled because we knew we were going to go with this Moen faucet. If you're doing this as part of an upgrade, Moen provides this real nice brushed nickel, of course matches the faucet itself, cover that would allow you to cover up the traditional 3 holes that a faucet would take. But I don't have to use that on this application. So the next thing I have to do is install the mounting bracket. I need to thread the hoses, the data cable, and the faucet shank through this hole, and then this washer goes on. The faucet shank goes through this hole, and then you want the water supply lines and the data cable to be here, and you need to make sure they're not pinched in any way. Then you install this nut onto the faucet shank that secures the bracket, the washer to the underside of the sink, and that of course secures the faucet to the countertop. As with any faucet install, getting up behind the back of the sink is probably the most frustrating part of this whole process. But as you can see, we attach the plate, the special washer, and then the retaining nut. And Moen provides this nice tool for getting up there to tighten that nut down very securely. Okay, now the next step is to install the hose bracket approximately 2 inches from the end of the hose, and that's the supply line hose. Let's go ahead and knock that out. Now that we got this assembled, we have to install this piece onto the faucet shank, and then we'll secure it with a nut. So slide it onto the shank and secure it with the hose guide nut. Don't have to be too tight, just enough. Now you want to feed the small end of the pull down hose through the faucet
It's the one with the small white protective cap on the end. Once you're done feeding that through the neck of the faucet, you want to go down underneath the sink, remove that white protective cap, and then connect to the faucet hose with the nice quick connect that Moen provides.
The next step is to mount the control box. Looks pretty straightforward. The only stipulation in the instructions is to place the top mounting screw no less than 12 inches from the bottom. That way you've got plenty of room to make all your connections above and below.
So I'm going to pre-position the control box, mark a spot with my pencil, and then I'm going to pre-drill before I put that screw in. Now, Moen emphasizes that you need to make sure that the control box is within reach of your hot and cold water supply lines, as well as the faucet supply lines itself. Make sure that you don't mount it too far away. Now I'm just making sure it's nice and level. I'm going to mark the two other holes. I'll pre-drill, and then we'll get this thing mounted nice and level and securely. And that's all there is to it. On to the next step. Now it's time to start making the connections. You'll notice that the connections are numbered 1, 2, 3, and 4. And that, of course, corresponds to the water supply lines that we'll be connecting here in just a moment. To do that, you want to remove the blue protective cap and inserting them into the appropriate push connect port. Now, obviously, the number 1 line goes into the number 1 port, number 2, and so on and so forth. Now, the Moen instructions emphasizes that you should push it in nice and securely, and then give it a nice tug to make sure that it is properly seated. It really is about as easy as it looks. The Moen engineers did a real nice job putting the system together. Okay, now we need to connect the cold water and hot water supply lines. I always use a little bit of Teflon tape and then get the connection fittings nice and snug. Be careful not to over tighten them though. Next we need to attach the spray wand onto the pull down hose. We'll remove the protective cap. Then we need to visually inspect and make sure that the rubber washer and screen are in place. Then we'll attach the wand to the pull down hose. Get it nice and finger tight, and then just a half or a quarter turn with a wrench. You got to be real careful here, folks, not to make it too tight. These are all plastic components and can break easily. Now you'll notice here that the spray wand dips down a little bit. Now it's time to connect the weight to the bottom of the water supply line. You see that white tape? You want to put the weight just below that, and you want to make sure that it's not going to interfere in any way with anything underneath the sink. Now here, just a very simple process of installing the 6 batteries that came with the system. Moen provides a bit of industrial strength Velcro here. I've attached both pieces to the battery pack, and I'm just going to simply mount it there next to the control box. The next step is to attach the data cable. We'll pull the blue protective cap off of the data cable, and it inserts very much like a USB plug into the bottom of the control box. And now it's time to apply power to the control box. You'll want to remove the protective cap and plug in the battery cable. Now, it's important here, folks, to make sure there's nothing within 3 feet of the faucet, and you'll want to give it about 10 seconds before you pop up from underneath the sink while it goes through its startup. Well, we're just about done with this project. All that's left is to install the soap dispenser, which we weren't sure if we wanted to do, but now that it is installed, we really like it. It's handy just to have soap right there next to the faucet. And refilling the bottle is super easy too. All you have to do is pull the soap dispenser head out of the bottle, and refill that way. You won't have to crawl underneath the sink every time you want to do it. Okay, and for all intents and purposes, we're done, but there is one small step remaining. Moen provides some zip ties for cleaning up all of the water supply lines and data cables and whatnot underneath the sink. But I thought it best to wait a couple of days to make sure I've got everything in the right spot before I permanently secure them. Well, hey folks, that brings us to the end of the project. This really was a pretty cool project and much simpler to install than I really thought it was going to be. Hey, thanks for sticking with me throughout this project. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comments or send me an email. If you decide to install your own Motionsense faucet, good luck. It really is a great product and super easy to install. See you next time on Brew.